name is Abbas Gullet. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Boma Pan-African Group Holding Company, which is a company that's owned by Kenya Red Cross, which manages 4 other businesses. One of the businesses is the Boma Hotels. It is Boma International Hospitality College, which is a hotel school. It is Emergency Medical Services, which is an ambulance company, shortly called E+. And then Switch TV, which is the newest kid on the block. What is to be a man? To be a man, in my opinion, it is to be humble, it to be a good human being, a good citizen, somebody who can mentor other people, especially young people in today's society, and just to be a good human being after all.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. This is your coach and your friend, Robert Bruale. And of course, this is the All Men Show, the best show in East and Central Africa, south of the Sahara and north of Limpopo. And somebody says, by the way of River Niger. It's an honor to have you. Please have a cup of coffee, get some warm water, because we are going to go 33,000 feet above sea level. As I said, we have men who come to this show, men who will inspire, men who will mentor, men whose stories will change your outlook on life. Today is no different. In fact, I have the privilege of hosting one great man, a man who is not a stranger to many of us. We have seen him in the toughest of situations. When we are mourning, he comes in. Whereby there's disorder, it attracts him to come. We've seen him trying to sort out Kenyans in distress. Who am I talking about? Well, let him introduce himself. Karibu sana sa.
Asante sana.
It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Asante sana. Tell us who is Mr. Abbas Gullet?
Well, Abbas Gullet is just ordinary Kenyan, a Kenyan who was born in Garissa County in northeastern Kenya about 62 years ago. Whose parents passed away when he was less than 5 years old, and he was adopted and grew up in Mombasa, which is his basic home now. Right. Adopted by loving parents and caring parents who have also since passed away, but who grew up on a government scholarship. I got government bursaries for my education, both in primary and secondary school, and self-made in the sense of having worked very hard of my life, largely with one major employer that had been the Red Cross, where I started as a volunteer way back in 1973 in a local branch in Mombasa, where I learned basic first aid because I was a member of then the President's Award scheme in Kenya. It's called Duke of Edinburgh Award in UK. And to do that service, to get the medal, bronze, silver and gold, you start with bronze, and in bronze you had to do community service, but also learn basic first aid. So at that time, way back in 73, basic first aid, you could either go to St. John's Ambulance or go to the Red Cross. I went to the Red Cross, where I did my initial basic first aid training in order for me to continue with the President's Award scheme, which was a 4-part program. Primarily, that was then my association with the Red Cross. Since then, from 1973 to today, I'm still with the Red Cross, connected one way or another, although I've given up my active full-time Red Cross employment 2 years ago.
All right.
Yes.
So you were born in a place called Mogadishu or something?
Modogashe.
Modogashe.
Yes.
How was it growing up? Because they say if you grow up in such tough places, you feel like life has not given you a good start. And I'm sure there are young men watching, and young ladies for that matter, who feel, or you know what, people who have been born in the big cities are the ones who have a head start in life. But we're seeing you now. But did you feel when you were growing up, especially take us when you lost your parents? 5 years is a very young age. Did you lose them at the same time or separately? What did that make you feel in as far as the chances in life are concerned? Because there's an orphan watching right now.
I'm sure there are many orphans watching this, and to say that's not the end of the world. You know, it's what you make of it. It's also where you end up. I had my brother, my older brother, who ended up in a children's home. He was in a children's orphanage in Garissa, a young Muslim association orphanage for boys. But I was fortunate enough to have been adopted by, like I said, a loving, caring family that did not come from, if we go into what you call ethnicity or tribes, into the community that I was born into. I grew up in totally a different community than I was born in. So I don't remember much of my childhood in the in the case of the 5 years from 0 to 5.
Okay.
Very little that I would remember. There are vague memories here and there, but nothing concrete. So my memories is where I grew up as a child, from 5 years onwards in Mombasa, where I went to, for my primary education, I went to Buxton Full Primary School, which was a government managed and run school in Mombasa. And from there, then I went to Mombasa Technical High School, which was again a government run school, but a high school, which I was very happy to be. But so for me, what I would say is joining the Red Cross at a tender age, when I was in Form 1, to do the President Award scheme, for me was very important. But even prior to that, in my primary school days, my adopted parents were, like I said, very caring, very loving. And for me, a foundation in any child or any young person is in the family. It's in the family. There's a stability in the family. Then the stability will, go through the life of that individual. It's the foundation. The formative years are very, very important. So joining the President's Award scheme in order to do the 3 stages of the bronze, silver, and gold, for me was also a blessing, because it took me to Red Cross. And Red Cross, I did my initial basic first aid. On doing the initial first aid, the question then I was asked by the Red Cross lecturer then, do I want to join a Red Cross youth club that did some community service and work over the weekend, during the national holidays, and in the evenings. So for me, it was like a calling. So I joined the Red Cross at a tender age as a volunteer, where we were trained further into first aid, into community service. We'll go into communities, do cleanup campaigns, and go to the old people's home, to orphanages, to the physically disabled in Mombasa, Portrees, or the School for the Blind in Likoni in Mombasa, where we would visit them and do programs with them. So at a very tender age, it taught me to be mindful of others, but also it also brought me back to where I came from, that I was also fortunate to have been an adopted child as an orphan. So I didn't have the feeling that I have missed a lot in, as sad as one may say. I lost my parents. I didn't remember them that well, but like I said, I had new parents. These new parents cared for me, loved me, and took care of me within their means. But doing the community service and the Red Cross work really brought a new dimension for me. So I've got to associate myself with other young people, where we were really mentored by those leaders in the Red Cross then, and people who were like our fathers and our parents in another form, because here you are at home where you are taken care of, but when you are in school, from school you went to work with the community and with other young people. So your day was fully occupied with a lot of activities, and there was no time to get into vices or into social problems, which of course they were there even then, but today probably is more apparent than it was previously, what I would say from my own experiences.
Where's your brother? And how was it being separated from your brother?
So again, there wasn't that knowing each other very well at that tender age, but when we were separated, he was older than me. I had a sister who passed away at tender age also, from what I've been explained. But my brother ended up, as I said, in an orphanage in Garissa, where he grew up and did his primary school, secondary school. He lives in Garissa today, has his own family, has his own business, so he ran his own business in Garissa. So we've been in touch since we came to be in contact again after the separation, for that matter. But that has not deterred him or deterred me in achieving what we wanted to achieve in life and the purpose. So I'm very happy with what I have achieved. He's happy with what he has achieved. And life goes on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You have a calling, because when we mention your name, Abbas Gullet,
Yes.
In every 10 people, 9 would say humanitarian. You seem to be attracted to helping other people. And I think I would attribute that to, from what you're saying, to some of the things you went through. And but as an individual, sir, has that affected you? Because sometimes, I'm a counselor,
Yes.
sometimes sitting and listening to people and all their issues can affect you, the person.
Sure.
So we see you leading the troops.
Yes.
And we'll touch a bit on some of the things we've seen you do. We've seen you leading the troops. Sometimes you can be leading while bleeding.
Sure.
When you go home, how do you unwind? Because you see a lot of things out there.
Yes.
You've seen bloody faces. You've seen people dying. You've seen people hungry.
Yes.
How do you unwind as a leader?
Good question. And there has been many discussion on this subject, you know, at whose expense are we doing this?
Right.
Is it at my expense, the expense of my family, expense of the community? So for me, as a Muslim and practicing Muslim, and I'm not overly in the other side, one could be told you're an extremist. I believe in God, and I believe that, yes, the work that you do comes with a lot of stress and comes with a lot of challenges, but the only way you detox or you try to get out of that bleeding is to go back to your Creator, and you pray, and more in prayers. So I do my normal requirement of 5 prayers in a day that I do every day. And every time I go through some of these very difficult situations in the past, is just to then say, okay, it's work for me, number one. Number two, it has to be done. And number three, if I'm the one to do it, then I will not hesitate, I will do it. But obviously the question has been asked, what do you do to detox yourself or to unwind yourself? So many times, well, I love sports also, so it would be probably watching sports to just shift my mind into something different. Whether the Japanese friends who say you have different faces, you have different masks that you can, you know, mask this one, remove this mask and put another mask, and you go on with life.
Yes.
But you can only do so much of that also at the other end. But it's through prayers, family, and I really like being with my family at the end of the day. So however much I go out during the day and do as much as I do, I've been very happy going home and being with the family, because at the end of the day, the foundation is the family. And if the family appreciates and understand, talking to them. I remember an incident in Tanzania, in a place called Ngara, which was a refugee camp of Rwandese and Burundians in 2005, 2006, after the war in Rwanda. And I was managing a camp with, you know, they said it was the second largest city outside Dar es Salaam,
Right.
Because of the 750,000 refugee population that were living there. And as Red Cross, we ran a camp. So, but within the Red Cross, we had our own camp of staff, workers and volunteers, international staff, Tanzanian staff, and Tanzanian Red Cross volunteers. All in all, Rwandese volunteers, sorry. All in all, I had about 3,000 workers that were working for me under my management. We would pay salaries once a month through trucks bringing money, and we pay. So one of the times when it was our payroll week, we got attacked by thugs, or whatever you may call them today. And in that, they were looking for me, because they knew I was head of that operation and I had the keys to where the access of the money would be. So they knew who they were looking for. But fortunately, they did not know how I looked like. So they even passed me and calling my name and asking for me. And there were some of my other staff, foreigners, that were really affected. Some were injured. Some there was a guy also who died. And in that incident, the question you're asking, how did you detox yourselves? So we wanted to, at one point, we were advised to bring counselors from outside to come and counsel the team. But because the team had bonded together and worked together for quite some time, they felt more comfortable working among themselves to try and detox themselves.
They trusted each other.
They trusted each other. So talk about it, explain it, cry it out, you know, let it out. So this is why I say many times family for me is crucial, because I could go home and discuss with the family some of the challenges, maybe not in graphic details of what you would see, but by and large the general discussion.
Have you ever felt like packing it all in? I mean, like them calling your name, and these are not people who are coming with an olive branch.
No.
The psychological effect was also not easy.
Sure.
Have you ever sat and said, you know what, I'm not dying for anybody, I have my family. Personally, have you ever felt like, no, I'm done with this, I'm not the savior of the world?
No, in a way, I would say no, because for me, you know, once you, Robert, when you accept this job, you accept it wholeheartedly. You're either in it through or
Or
not.
you're not.
I remember once again in 2008 when we had the post-election violence in Kenya. As Kenya Red Cross, then we had simulation, we had scenarios prior to the election.
Right.
Kenya, since 1992, we've had what we call pre-election violence. But we never had post-election violence.
Yes.
But in 2007, as we were preparing for the election, we had the violence prior to the election. But we could tell that this time around, the way things are, there could be a post-election violence.
So you felt it?
Yeah, we felt it.
You had your team now doing the...
Our teams were on the ground months and months. I mean, all over the time. They're there every time. But at that time, we played with scenarios. So we had different scenarios, you know. Best case scenario, you know, middle case scenario, which you had probably pre-election and a bit of post-election, but not that bad. But worst case scenario, which was post-election, which was boom, like the way it did at the end of the day. So I went to Mombasa because then I was registered in Mombasa. Today I'm registered in Nairobi to vote. So I went to Mombasa for preparing for the election. I went and voted. I finished. It was, you know, Christmas, New Year time. So I decided, I'm going to, you know, South Coast and go to Leisure Lodge, and I was there. And then, but in touch with my team on the phone every hour, every minute. So I think election was 27. By 28, we could already see what was going on.
Something was simmering.
Something was simmering. We could get that. My teams in the Rift Valley, in Central, in Nairobi, you know, we could tell what was going on. So I decided to drive back with my family, you know, on the 29th. So because we could really see what was happening. Actually 28. So on coming back, the violence in Nairobi had started. So coming from Mombasa, drove straight to this compound of the Red Cross and just to ask because we had a 24-hour call center where we were monitoring everything. So meeting my team, the big question was, the young volunteers were afraid to go to Kibra and were afraid to go to Eastlands at the same time. Why? Because if you are a Kikuyu, you could not go to Kibera Laini Saba. If you are a Luo, you could not go to Dagoretti Corner. If you are this ethnicity group, you couldn't go to Pas Mlango Kubwa, you know, in Eastlands, to go to Mathare and beyond, and Dandora. So what was the question? The question was, they said, do we wait and let this thing continue, or for it to settle down, or do we go because there were humanitarian imperative and needs at that time? So my message to my staff was, look, I'm your Secretary General. I'm the leader of this team. I will bite the first bullet if I have to. So you come with me. Those who are ready to come. Those who are not ready to come, khalas, no one is being forced to come here.
Right.
But so straight away, I think leading from the front, people were very quick in responding to say, if you are going, then we are coming.
Then we are coming.
Yeah. So that's how we were able to enter Kibra, go to Dagoretti, go to Eastlands, all the way to Dandora, passing through Mlango Kubwa, which was a no-go zone, which once they allowed and they saw us, we are Red Cross, and they were not partisan to any of these politics. Even if we were, people were able to hide it. We didn't ask for the ethnicity, but of course we went to Mlango Kubwa and we could saw people being asked, ordinary Kenyans being asked to undress themselves to be known what their identity was. Unfortunately, but that was the reality on the ground at the time. So we had to come in and protect people who were being profiled because of their ethnicity and because the way they looked and the way they were physically born by our Creator, for that matter. So the moment people see you willing to bite the first bullet, then your staff will follow you, and that's what happened in Westgate when Westgate happened.
Yes.
Because again, very fun enough, on that day I was supposed to travel to go to Saudi Arabia on a trip, but I had my kids in Islamic Quranic school in Lavington. I went to pick them at 12:30. We're on the way going back home, and I get a phone call from my team here, a radio station, the call center that we have next door, asking me to come quickly to the base. And I said, why should I come? And they told me something is happening in Westgate. So,
and that's when you knew something had happened.
Yes.
You knew things were thick.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing from what I would call the front line. Mr. Abbas Gullet is not a stranger to many people. lives have been saved. It's what we call also inspirational leadership. He said, if I have to be the one to take the first bullet, I'm ready. See you after the break. This, of course, is the All Men Show, the best show in Eastern Central Africa, south of Sahara, north of Limpopo, of course, on the one and only station, Switch TV. Well, thank you for still being here with us. This, of course, is the All Men Show. I do believe many of you, if not all of you, are being inspired already. The journey of a man who lost his parents at the age of 5, adopted by great people who have since also passed. A brother who is in Garissa, doing well for himself, and him also doing well for himself right here. A man who has been in the forefront of smoke, fire, stones, and all that, you name it, but is still sane. How does he manage it? He says he's God and his family. But I want us to go deep into the thickness. Westgate happens. Now, we also saw you at the front line.
Yes.
You are either crazy or brave, or a bit of both. Because no Kenyan can say you are the kind of leader who gives orders from behind the desk.
No.
We've seen it in the media, we've seen it in the print, TV. You are always at the front line.
Yes.
I'll ask you something very personal.
Yes.
Where did this spirit of bravery come from?
I think probably it is, I don't know whether I go back to my roots and you say...
Yes, please, it's fine, because we need to know the genesis of this.
You're a nomadic person, and I think I find the Kenyans who are from the pastoralist community, and this is not in any way trying to be, I don't know, whatever word one can use, I find them to be very decisive in decision making. Because it's all about decision making at the end of the day. You know, the moment I accepted this job, I knew it came with risks, I knew it came with responsibility, whether now it is madness or no. But I can tell you for sure, Robert, on that day of Westgate, the psyche was such that I was with my family. My 2 young kids, my daughter and son, number 3 and number 4, because I have 4 kids. The 2 older ones were in Canada at that time in a university together in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So, and my wife. So we were 4 of us in the car, me and my wife and my 2 kids at the back. Coming from school, we are now to take them home for lunch. I prepare for my travel in the evening. But on learning what was happening and on learning that there were a terrorist attack, the natural instinct was we have to be there. So we just to call my colleague was at the radio station at the time called Nick Thuo. So Nick, you mobilize your team, call our ambulance services, let them be all on the way there. All ambulances that you could manage to get there, because that's a shopping mall. It was going to be massive. There were going to be many people. It was on a Saturday afternoon, so it was shopping spree. Whether it was 13th of September, it might be middle of the month, but that shopping mall was very popular then, having just recently been opened.
Yes.
So I drove, and by the time I got into the neighborhood, I passed Sarit Center and took where the old Nakumat UK was,
yes,
which was demolished. Opposite there was the Hindu temple, and now that road was blocked already by the cops and security forces. So I could park on the road, but opposite where now you have Blue Ocean, where there's this building overlooking. Yes. So I could park opposite on the road, and I parked there. Luckily, I had my Red Cross jacket with me. I left my wife and the kids there. That's about 1:45.
You drove with your kids there?
Yeah, because they were in the car. We were coming from Lavington, boom, going home. I live in Ridgeways on the other side in Kiambu. So, boom, I left them there. I told them, you guys, wait here for me. Let me go check what's going on. That's about like 1:45 in the afternoon. I was going back to that car around 7 in the evening. So from 1:45 up to 7 in the evening, my wife and my 2 kids were in that car. They hadn't moved. No food, no lunch, no whatever. I don't even know if there was water in the car. And I decided then to go in. And going in, at least some of our ambulances had reached, because they have siren, they would be allowed to go in. So on reaching there, on the road, of course, that's when we found the first bodies of the French lady that was killed and other people on the road before we even got into the mall. So into the mall, the risk was, there was a ramp that you could drive up and come to the back of the mall.
Right.
Previously. So we were allowed to go there. So I started working there with some of my colleagues. By then, a number had come. My deputy then, a gentleman, a medical doctor called James Kisson, I grabbed James. I said, James, me and you are going to go in because you're a doctor. And yes, we'll have the ambulances, but I need somebody who is medically qualified, who can help to identify, worst cases that, because someone need to say, this is the worst case, this is the worst case, because others could be making a lot of noise. But so the worst cases would be the first one taken to hospital. And luckily, we had set up our ambulance business then a number of years back. So they were the top of the range ambulances. So we were able to go in. The first two people that we saw when we went up is where they had the children's party that KISS 100 was involved, Radio Africa was involved in organizing that whole week. So luckily we had an ambulance there, even as part of that event on that day.
Right.
So from there then we could see, long story short, one of the girls who lost the lower part of her limb, this part, Rachel, who was a hairdresser in Ashley's,
yes.
inside there. She was just a worker. She lost one of her leg, and there was a girl of Somali origin from Canada who also was badly hurt. I think the first grenade that was thrown hit those two ladies, and Rachel today, believe it or not, she owns a hair salon here at the Boma Hotel, which we helped her to set it up as part of the fund that was collected from the public. But was I crazy? Yes, probably there was a bit of madness in doing that. But the other aspect is that it's leadership, and leadership calls for tough decision during tough times, and I did not hesitate for 1 minute. Then going into the mall itself much later during the afternoon, where we met a number of people who was very interesting that I got called when we started now going floor by floor. People saw us on the global televisions. My kids were in Canada, were calling my parent, I was calling my wife to find out where is our father, why is he there, and where are you guys? So they were able to communicate all the way from Canada and talking to my wife, who was sitting in the car, and they were telling my wife and other two kids what I was doing inside there, because they could see from there. But the interesting part is when I got called by, I don't know whether to say this, but Zahra Moi calls me, Gideon Moi's wife,
yes,
and tells me that, look, I see you there. There are people who are locked up in the main administration block of the Westgate shopping mall, the management. One of their family members, the late Robin Chesire's daughter, was in there with, and she had an infant with her. So they had gone into hiding into the management office. So they locked themselves 2 doors, one door, then second door. So it was very difficult to get in. So that is when I met then now currently Senator Abdul Haji and one of the reserve police and Asian guy. Then I grabbed them and said, look, you have to take me there, but you give me the protection that you have to give me. So normally we would not, in Red Cross, we would not go with any guns. We don't carry any guns. Our protection is only our emblem of the cross that you wear, the jacket, and nothing more. But because they were there and I could identify both of them, and I didn't know Abdul even then, but he had a pistol, and this Asian guy also had a pistol. He was a police reservist. So I went in with them and I said, look, I need to go to this place. So we actually went to the control room, which was the first one that was initially taken over by the terrorists. But when we went to the control room, they were not there at that time. But then we were told this is the management office, so on the first floor of the shopping mall. So here we were trying to phone. I was given the lady's number, Chesire daughter's number. I was calling her, and her phone, I think, was going to die on her. But somehow they managed to open the first door. They didn't believe. There was no trust. Yes, there was no trust. So they did the first door and they opened second door. But by the time we went to the second door, we were able to get 32 of them out of that little place that almost being suffocated. So the entire management team that we took them out, because what we did was floor by floor by floor, we were getting our people to go through the back, because the back area was safer until the Reke group came in and went into the shopping mall, the Nakumat shopping mall. And I think the Reke group would have handled that matter themselves very easily had they been given the full space to do the work. Yeah.
And I can just imagine what your wife and child number 3 and 4 were going through, because they are not far from you.
Yes.
But it's taking people from Canada, telling them, okay, now dad is here. This is what he's doing. We are hearing gunshots.
True.
My goodness, that's true inspirational leadership. But allow me to take you back to the post-election violence. Sir, we are going into elections next year.
Yes.
As you say, your team is always on the ground. What is your feeling about next year? Because if social media is anything to go by, lack of tolerance is being seen, careless languages, politicians are also abusing each other, and yet they know they control a big constituency of people who hang on to every word they say.
Sure.
So I humbly ask you, with your experience, speak to that voter and speak to the leaders, because you have been, people like us were watching this on TV.
Yes.
People, bodies being carried, people fighting. But it hits a little bit different when you are in the thick of things, which you and your team have been anyway.
Sure.
Speak to that Kenyan and speak to that politician, because you've realized it just happens like this if you're not careful.
Come.
Yes.
Boom. And you know, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much for this to happen.
Right.
But you know, even as I answered that question, just going back to the 30th of December 2007, you know, it was so shocking for me to be getting reports from my staff then who were on the ground, who were on the forefront, who had been harassed because of their ethnicity or because of their tribe. Young people totally committed. You know, a gentleman called Fred Nyongesa, who came from Western Kenya, but was our regional manager in the Rift Valley. So he was up past Eldoret. And, you know, he's just being stopped for no reason, harassed, you know, pushed left, right, center, slapped like a small boy by teenagers, by young people who have been intoxicated with this rhetoric and this perception or belief that, you know, they were the right thing to do for them. You know, it was daring to charter a plane, a helicopter, on the 31st, and taking one of my staff then, who now is an American citizen, works for the American forces because he left the country then, to even get a pilot who was willing to go to the Rift Valley.
It was not easy.
It was not easy. And Captain Gakuo, who was then working for Kenya Power, but was running helicopter service, one of the few very good pilots on helicopters, agreed. The young cameraman I had was Wakikuyu speaking. He says, Mzee, if you are going with me, I'll go with you. If not, apana. Captain Gakuo, the same thing. Bwana Gullet, if I'll go with you, sawa, twende. But if it will be somebody else, me, I'm not going. Because what we are hearing is not good.
Right.
And then I had to take a friend of mine who was then working for National Disaster Management Services, Colonel Amadi, Martin Amadi, ex-military, ex-Air Force, a lawyer, retired, but very, 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 you know, deeply Kenyan in his thinking. Mm-hmm. So we flew from here all the way to Tarbo in Kitale to go and see various places where we stopped. You know, we stopped just outside Nakuru, we stopped in Naivasha, we stopped in Nakuru to refuel. From Nakuru we went to Kericho. From Kericho we went back to Eldoret, went to the Catholic Church where we met the late Bishop Korir and his team, where he had already thousands of people in the church compound. From there we went to Tarbo, to the prisons, GK prisons, where people had run to hide themselves in. Then we went all the way to Kitale town and flew back. And you know, it was so shocking for me as a Kenyan to see what I saw then. And I was very, very happy at the end of the day. The first pictures Kenyans really saw in their living rooms and in their bedrooms on the 31st of December and 1st of January were all what we brought in, footage that we brought in. From the air we could see where burning was taking place. From the air we could see young men running, torching places in many places around that whole trip that we went to. I remember on the first going then, being called by the then Director General of Intelligence, Mr. Gichangi, going to even show him and present to him some of the footages that we had, which became the most shocking thing to see in the country. The intelligence was there all along. It was not for lack of intelligence. So coming back to your question, Robert, now, I have seen politicians to be the most reckless people that we have in this country. I know a lot of them. I have respect for many of them, but I have no respect for many of them either, for what they continue to do. They don't understand. They don't see the bigger picture. It's about them and them only. And for me as a Kenyan, it hurts to see these young people that we pay millions of shillings every year or every second year for every month as salaries and packs that we pay for them, what they do. All this loose talk going on every day. They have no iota of thinking what really can happen, what can really tear this country into pieces. And they shouldn't be allowed. I would like to advise and challenge my brother, Reverend Kobia, who is the chair of NCIC, to really get onto this, because really these people are not above the law, irrespective of who they are. It doesn't matter. Kenya is bigger than the whole total sum of all of us. And we shouldn't allow this to continue to happen, because if it happens, it's going to be terrible. And it's not going to be that easy.
Passion is what you hear from this great gentleman. To the politicians, please be careful what you say. Just 2 sentences can burn a country. Kenya is bigger than all of us. See you after the break. This is the All Men Show. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what a privilege to have this great gentleman, Mr. Abbas Gullet, a man who has been in the forefront. He has seen a lot, and that's why you can tell he's speaking with so much passion. This is the All Men Show on Switch TV. Please get us on Zuku channel 53, Azam channel 338, and Signet free to air. You simply cannot be connected to All Matters Switch TV. Mr. Abbas, you've said politicians need to be very careful about what they say. But we have said this over and over again. They have seen the danger of their words. As you've said rightly, some are very responsible, but some are also very, very careless. But is it because also we as a citizenry are also allowing for some of these mediocre people and careless talk because we are giving them an audience? What then can we do on this side?
Switch them off. But they will buy the media people. That is my problem. They buy the media people, we just run around them and report on them because of the handouts that they give. But
envelopes.
Shut them out. Shut them out. At my age, 62 years, what do I need in life? I just need peace. I need to be a good citizen. You hear the insults being directed at the head of state. You may not like Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta for whatever he is. Like him, hate him, it's your problem. But the fact of the matter is, what is the one single most unifying factor in this country?
Presidency.
It's the presidency. Today, how he got there is not my problem. God gave him that. Whether it is through us who elected him, it doesn't matter. He is the head of state. I find young politicians who use vulgar language, and we see this in our bedrooms, to insult the head of state. The presidency is what unifies this country. And if you can't respect that, then get out of the way. These people should be behind bars. In my former work in the Red Cross, I would never say this. But today, let me speak as an ordinary Kenyan citizen. Put them behind bars. Because it's just being disrespectful. Our kids are not being mentored. Our kids are not being taught good values. Because however much we try as parents to teach them good values, and you see what is being said on the television, national television, that national television should be more responsible. There should be ethics even on what is aired and what is not aired. You know, prime time news, what do you hear every day? I switch off. I don't listen to news anymore. I'd rather watch my football or cricket or, you know, soap opera, whatever it would be, because it's just a waste of time. You hear about, you know, all the filth that goes, that is shown on this national television. Right. Prime time news. Not even other time, prime time news.
Because
who has done
it's
what?
What sells, so they say.
Well, they can say it's what sells. Sells to who and for how long? And that is why we set up Switch TV station, to look at young people, to mentor young people. We need to have values, morals, integrity. But today, corruption, as is being said by everybody, the young people, the research that was done a few years ago said young people feel proud that they actually, there's nothing wrong with stealing. Is that what we have come up to?
Sadly.
And what is being said by politicians? Who has stolen from who has slept from who has killed who has done what? You know, and I've seen in Mandera, ordinary Kenyans from Nyeri being killed, quarry workers being killed. We have seen people killed in Wajir. We've seen people killed in Peketoni. We've seen people killed in Nairobi. We've seen people killed in many other places. Dusit, we saw what happened the other time only 2.5 years ago. And we can go on and on and on. But you know, what lessons are we learning? What are we teaching our children? Where is the value? Where is the mentorship? Where is the culture, the tradition that older people would be responsible to teach their sons, daughters? If I can't do as a father, my brother or my sister can talk to my daughter or my son on some of these basic things, whether it is in about life, whether it's about marriage, whether it's about education or health or whatever it may be. But certainly, the rhetoric going on in this country today is unacceptable. It's reaching a proportional level that you are worried. We just saw now Marsabit the other day, a place that I know very well, that I've been involved during my years in the Red Cross, that it just takes something little to boom, turn it around. Now, the president has to go and call leaders from that county to come and sit with them, to try to talk to them. For how long will the president, for how long will the Matiangi, for how long will the police commissioners be calling people to come together? What are they doing themselves? Why are they allowing their children and sons and daughters, not their own of the leaders, but of the ordinary Marsabit Moyale people, to be fighting each other? We can go to, you know, Baringo and West Pokot and Turkana. You had Miss Matiang going the other day. For how long will the killing and the counter-killing of those pastoralist communities go? And for how long will you be sending military and the police to go in there? And nothing changes at the end of the day. Because again, politicians are involved. So currently, if the current trend doesn't change, if he's not arrested, then God help us all next year with this election at this heightened political tension. Even, ICC has not deterred people. And what then would the judiciary and the police and, you know, DCIO and all do? I mean, people need to be behind bars for people to realize here, kimeumana, na mambo imebadilika.
But is the judiciary doing enough? Is the DCI doing enough?
Well, I don't know. As a Kenyan, I don't see people being, you know, a whole system going through to someone from the time you are suspected to being arrested, to being charged, to being prosecuted. We don't see this going to the logical conclusion of people being held accountable, whether it is, whether them is because of the theft that they do or the killing that they do or all the, you know, misnomers that people do. But it doesn't seem to be no action being taken. So people have become very brave. They can say what they want to say to the head of state. How do you insult the head of state? Like I said before, you may not like Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, but the fact is, he is the head of state. He is the president. It's the presidency that keeps us together as a nation. He took the oath of office. He was given that sword from one power to the other by Mzee Kibaki to Uhuru. Now, until he hands over, people have to respect that institution. And this is not there today completely from what you can see. Unacceptable. Then what do you expect my son or daughters to be doing at home? They'll have no respect.
Well, to the young people who are watching, I think it is time that you realize, and listening to a man of great wisdom, Mr. Abbas Gullet, I think this is the time to say no to the handouts.
Yes.
This is the time to say no to cheap liquor, because you may do that, injure somebody else, and there's another young man injuring your own mother or your own father. As a nation, we need to come together and love one another. And to the politicians, I think this is the time to weigh your words very, very, very carefully.
which unfortunately, Robert, they are not doing. And this is, the population, over 70% of the population is below 35 years. You know, this is why even we set up Switch TV, so that we can reach these young people. And to say, Kenya is for them. And it's not today, it is tomorrow. And it's that tomorrow we need to protect. Don't be misused by these guys who come and sing all manner of songs to you people. You know, it's just shocking for me. I go to Lamu. Today, substance and drug abuse is a major problem in this country. It's actually a national disaster.
Yes.
But who's dealing with this matter? Where are the politicians? They are the ones who are giving more money and more drugs and more substance to these young people so that they can be under their control. Why are they not giving them employment? Why are they not training them? Why are they not educating them? Why aren't they helping them to achieve those goals that they want to? Why are they just the rhetoric that goes around in this whole place? But substance and drug abuse, like HIV/AIDS was said 20 or 30 years ago, that it's a national disaster. Today I would say substance abuse is a national disaster. A national disaster. And that, a lot needs to be done as a country for us to invest in this. Today we built the largest drug rehab center in Lamu in Kenya, because Lamu was a huge menace. It's been up for the last 2.5 years. We can't even get people to go there because they can't afford to come there. Okay? And these politicians, if they have money, pay to rehabilitate those young people. Instead of them joining the Al-Shabaab or joining these other groups, terrorists that we call them. Why don't we rehabilitate them? Why don't we educate them? Why don't we teach them how to farm? You know, I mean, it's just you're prescribed this fish, this particular fish. And there can be many issues of injustices in our country that are historical. But, it is very, very sad that really young people are being misused. And it's up to us as parents to talk to our children. I can tell you, Robert, I was... 2 weeks ago, I was in Dandora dump site for 5 days. Actually, for 10 days.
Right.
I have a daughter of mine who is doing her master's somewhere in UK, in London School of Economics. So one of the things that she has been studying is about dump site workers. Dump site workers. When we talk about hustlers in this nation, someone who earns 200 shillings or 300 shillings a day, then has a family of 4 or 5 children to take care, a single mother, who collects in Dandora dump site food waste that has been thrown. The truckloads of garbage that goes to throw the garbage at the dump site.
To go feed the family?
Yeah, they go pick. So they pick, not to feed them that food. Sometimes that food, yes. But sometimes they sell that food to pig farmers. Okay? So if you go to Dandora dump site now, there are men and women, there are children, there are boys, there are girls who are collecting this dump site, separation of the dump that we throw every day. Mm-hmm. And as they select them, there are plastics, there are metal, there are iron, there is different types of plastic. There is this one, the paper one now we use, there's a paper also. And then there are some valuables, but there's also the food that has been dumped in your taka packet that is thrown. So these things are separated. So women would be the one to take the dumped food. So that dumped food, sometimes they end up eating it to feed their children. Sometimes that is what is sold to pig farmers around the country, that around Nairobi, that will come and buy this. What do they earn in a day? Working for 12 hours, from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, or even longer, 7, they would get 200, maximum 300 shillings a day. They would sell to now the warlords, or what do you call them, the barons, the drug barons, and all these other things that come into it. Because they are sold to middlemen, the middlemen, until now you sell it to the big company that buys all these things, because they're recycled in that way. Okay? Now, when we talk about hustler, the people should go in there and see. Working in an environment that is unhealthy. But that's what people have done 30, 40 years, some of them, in the dump site there. 200 bob, max 300 bob. They have 3, 4 children to feed. They have to take them to school. They have to find shelter for them, and they have to feed them. What are we talking about? The gap between the have and the have not. Majority are young people out there in the dump sites who should be in school. who should be cared for, who should be given the opportunity. So going back to your very first question, you know, I find those kids very innovative, very hardworking, very, very willing to do much more for their families. Their kids who are now feeding the mother is now positive with HIV/AIDS because she used to work there before, but now the little boy has to leave school to go and work to feed the mother and the other siblings. And what are we talking about here?
Could this be the reason then politicians are taking advantage of these young people and also the rate of crime going high?
For sure. For sure. And it's gangs, organized crimes. You know, you are told solid waste and garbage is number 2 to drugs in terms of value globally. Globally. We look at it as a dirt we throw, but that is an economy that is unimaginable how big it is. And who dares touch it, because that's where the warlords and drugs barons are. So everyone has to toe the line at the end of the day. How are those contracts given? Why is it in the papers all the time when it comes to contracting, recycling and dump site, whatever, it becomes a major issue in all these county governments?
It's a multi-million-dollar business.
Precisely. And who are the bulk of the workers? Children and women.
For some little money.
For little money, just for them to survive the next morning. They have to create chamas. The women were telling me they had to create chamas of, you know, contributing 50 bob, you know, every day, or maybe 100 bob every month is what they can only save, because they have to feed, they have to clothe, they have to shelter, they have to whatever, those kids.
Wow. Even as we get to the end of the show, the tail end of the show, what next for Mr. Abbas Gullet? Many people call you Mr. Red Cross. In fact, I think separating you from Red Cross is almost an impossible task. But what next for you?
Red Cross, my time came and went. My cell, as someone tells me, my sell
by
date had come and gone a long time ago. So Red Cross has a new Secretary General, not new anymore, for the last couple of years. Dr. Aisha Mohammed runs Red Cross, and
right.
She's the Secretary General. So I'm completely out of that, and that's why you have not seen me. This is my first, or probably second for Switch interview that I've done since I left that part of my life 2 years ago. And I'm not looking backwards to look at it. It was wonderful. It was fulfilling globally what I did. And I would cherish every moment of it at that time. Today, I am fortunate to work for Bomba Pan-African, which is a group holding company that runs 4 businesses that the Red Cross owns. But even that, sooner or later, I think I would be also calling quits so that I can relatively stay out completely and maybe do other things. Like I've always said many times, my passion is farming. I don't own a farm because I don't have a land, but maybe one of these days I may ask those who have extra land to lease me, that I can enjoy my last few years in this life to enjoy what I would like to enjoy, to see things growing and to see things from germination to fruition. So that's what I would look forward to. But on the other hand, I cannot complain. I had my life, I did what I did, and I'm very happy that God gave me that ability, and that ability I did what I did, and I can only look back and say to my Creator, thank you for giving me that opportunity. Because I remember I told this once to somebody that in 2008, in January, as Kenyans were coming to contribute to the post-election violence, an old man came to me and said, young man, count yourself very lucky. And I say, why? He says, God loves you. And I say, why? And he says, look, God have given you this ability to help others. There are many of us with a lot of resources. We want to, but we don't know how to. Absolutely. But you have had this opportunity. So in that context, that rings a bell in my mind all the time, that when you ask that question, you know, how do you keep on doing it? Are you crazy? But it's an ability that God gave you. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. And I think to the best of my ability, I did what I could do. I'm sure I could have done much better, but I don't regret what I did.
Mr. Abbas Gullet, how many books have you read so far this year?
None.
Who have you met that you wish you hadn't?
Can't remember.
If you were famous, what would you be famous for?
for my humanitarian work.
What is the worst job you could have?
Being a cook.
What is your favorite TV channel?
Switch TV.
What is the one thing that you're most afraid of?
Don't know.
If you could paint anything, what would you paint?
My children.
What is the meanest thing you've ever said to somebody?
Shouting at somebody that I should not have.
What is your lifelong dream?
To help people that need to be helped.
If you could talk to the president, what would you talk about?
Generally, the challenges the country is facing.
Have you ever tried to do something you know you would really be bad at? And what was it?
Can't remember.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how cool are you?
I would say 7.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abbas Gullet. I would be speaking on behalf of very many people to say we do appreciate you for all the work that you have done. And may God always open the book of remembrance and say you are open to being used to change humanity.
Sure.
And because of that, your children will also be blessed. So thank you very much on behalf of very many people in Kenya and beyond.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this has been none other than your friend and your coach, Robert Broale, and this is the best show in Eastern Central Africa, south of the Sahara, and north of Limpopo. The All Men Show, only on Switch TV. See you next week.